Hello and welcome to your screencast this week. This is Erin and Dave's right here also.
Hello.
Today we are going to go over with you what we do with our notes for when to buy and sell by looking at the fast and slow moving averages of stock closing prices. When the fast moving average, which is going to be a lower amount of days, that we look at an average for, when that overtakes the slow moving average, which is a greater amount of days, that is a good time to buy a stock. And the opposite is true. When the slow moving average overtakes the fast, it is a good time to sell the stock. And so we go through this and we do a little graph with them looking at the Ford Motor Company, highlighting the fast and the slow moving averages. And we put an X to indicate when would be a good time to buy, and we use a circle or a dot to indicate when would be a good time to sell. So after we go through this example, we then, I think I have another one. Yep, another example right there, more simple one. And when we did the lab with them where they had to pick a stock to do this was the day following these notes. A lot of times there was only one intersection point or two, so I was glad I had showed them one that had only two intersection points. So here is an example that we do, and we used to do this by hand using the graphing calculator, calculating 2-day averages for all the days and then calculating 5-day averages for all the days, but that can be extremely tedious and is really not necessary since we can easily create a calculator in Google Sheets. So we share this template with them, and I actually have it completely blank and except for the titles, and we have them type in those dates from the notes and the closing prices for each of those dates. It's good to point out to them too, for when they have to do this on their own, to just take note that there is no April 26th and 27th, and there's no May 3rd and 4th because the stock market is closed on the weekends. So okay, so what I do with them right away is we put these calculators in. It's easy. It's an easy calculation to do, an easy formula. We talk about how you're not going to have a formula in cell C5 because you don't have the information from April 20th, so you can't make a 2-day average from April 21st. So we start with April 22nd, and the formula for finding an average is simple. It's equals average. And then in parentheses, you want to put the cells that you're finding the average of. Enter, and there's our average. And then we simply can drag this formula down so that it populates the rest of the cells in that column. Okay. So next we move on to the 5-day slow moving average. So we look at what cell are we going to start our formula in here. We need to start it in a cell that has 4 days worth of data above it. So April 25th would be C9 when we're going to put this formula in. Equals average again. And we're just going to highlight the first 5 closing prices. There we go. Okay, and then drag that down. And of course you can use more dates if you wanted. You could go over a longer period of time. And so then what we do is we take an opportunity to give them a visual of it, not by graphing it by hand, but by creating a graph using sheets. And it's a good way to revisit how to create a graph. So what we want to do is we want to highlight the data from the table. Great. And then we're going to go to Insert, Chart. And they come up with what they think is the best chart. So we want to change it. We don't want a bar chart. We want a line graph. So I say click on chart type and the very first line chart option. So there we go. Now, we have 3 pieces of information here. We have the closing prices for every day, the 2-day fast average, and the 5-day slow average. And what we want to do is we want to get rid of the closing prices so it doesn't confuse us when we're looking for intersection points. So if you look in the dialog box where we have our information for our chart, you're going to go to series and find the close series and just click on the 3 dots on the side and remove it. And so now we have all the information that we want. So we can move this chart so it's not covering our table. Okay, so here we moved it so it was out of the way. And then we simply want to look for the intersection points and what's happening at these intersection points. So if we look over here right around April 29th, there's an intersection point, and the fast moving average is going over the slow after that intersection point. So that would be a good time to buy. So you could have the students list the dates of, when to buy April 29th. Or what I do is I have them create little circles and X's. So X is going to represent when we're going to buy. So I go to Insert, Drawing, and click on that circle and square. And I couldn't find an X in shapes, so I went down to equation and I used the multiplication symbol. And I just created a little X. Save and close. And where is it? Okay, so I found my little X. It was over in my table, kind of hiding over here, and it blended in with the blue background because it's highlighted. So I put a little X over that point. And then we see at our next intersection point, the slow is overtaking the fast. So that would be a good time to sell, and we indicate that with an O. So here I go to Insert, Drawing. I click on my circle and square again, and this time I just go to Shapes and choose my circle. Make a little circle. And then just drag it onto the table, right around that intersection point. And again, you could also say, oh, you would then sell right around May 5th. And then in our last one, we have another intersection point, and the fast is overtaking a slow, so that would indicate a good time to buy. Sorry, I'm getting click happy here. All right, and I'm going to insert another X at that point. All right, so there we go. So this is how we finish off the notes for that day. If you have time, you can always go through another example. And then for our lab, which I've included instructions for and the calculator for, we have students choose a stock of their own. Here's the lab sheet for that. So they pick a stock of their own, and they record 3 weeks worth of closing prices for, I did from March 5th through March 23rd. So I had 3 full weeks for them. And they do the same exact thing. They insert the chart, they record when to buy with an X and when to sell with a circle. And I have to say, this went really well in class. The kids were able to create their chart pretty easily, and really seemed to buy into this lesson and really seem to be into this stocks unit. They're really into researching stocks and looking up prices of the things they're interested in. So that concludes our screencast for the day, for the week. Check Schoology for all the other materials that we're sharing, and have a great week.